Las Vegas. The city that never sleeps, the glittering desert empire where fortunes are won and lost under blinding neon lights. To most Americans, it's a place of escape, a playground of casinos, concerts, and luxury hotels. But in September 2025, behind the polished facade of the Strip, the story was very different. What unfolded this month wasn't just another chapter in Vegas history, it was a sequence of shocks that revealed how fragile the city really is. From the very first day of September, workers were already taking to the streets, demanding better wages and fair treatment. By the end of the month, casinos were paying record-breaking fines, politicians were dragged into scandal, and thousands of people filled the boulevards in fiery protests that shook the city to its core. At the same time, the numbers told their own grim story. Millions of tourists lost real estate, collapsing faster than anywhere else in America, and one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. In just 30 days, Las Vegas became a mirror of America itself, where dazzling success and deep crisis coexist side by side. This video will take you through that timeline step by step. Every rally, every scandal, every shocking headline. Because in September 2025, Sin City wasn't just entertaining tourists, it was sending a warning to the rest of the country. On September 1st, Labor Day, Las Vegas didn't wake up to the usual flood of tourists crowding the casinos. Instead, the spotlight was on the workers who keep the city alive. In front of the futuristic venue known as the Sphere, more than 700 employees stood shoulder to shoulder, carrying signs chanting and demanding one thing: fair treatment. This was no ordinary rally. It marked the 90th anniversary of the Culinary Union Local 226, one of the most powerful labor organizations in all of Nevada. For decades, this union has been the backbone of the city's economy, representing tens of thousands of housekeepers, servers, cooks, and bartenders. Their message on that hot desert morning was simple but powerful. One job should be enough. The demand wasn't just about higher wages. Workers spoke about the crushing cost of living, skyrocketing rent prices, and rising healthcare bills that made survival nearly impossible even with full-time jobs. One hotel worker told reporters that she'd worked in a Las Vegas strip casino for more than 15 years and still couldn't afford stable housing. Stories like hers echoed throughout the crowd, resonating with families and retirees who came out in support. The timing of the protest was critical. As the city faced declining tourism numbers and a shaky real estate market, workers feared that corporations would push the cost of the crisis onto them. Union leaders pointed directly at billionaire casino owners, accusing them of profiting, while employees struggled to pay for groceries and gas. "We built this city," one union leader shouted into the microphone, "and we won't be the ones left behind when the money dries up." This Labor Day rally wasn't just symbolic, it was the opening act of a month where Las Vegas's deepest problems would be exposed one by one. The chants outside the Sphere were more than protests. They were a warning that the people who keep Sin City running were ready to fight back. As the echoes of the Labor Day rally faded, the first week of September 2025 delivered another blow to Las Vegas, this time in the form of cold, unforgiving numbers. Reports from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority revealed that from January to June, the city welcomed only 22.6 million tourists, nearly 2 million fewer than the same period in 2024. In a city where every visitor counts, those missing millions were impossible to ignore. The most alarming part: the decline wasn't limited to a single category. International tourism, traditionally a lifeline for the city, fell sharply. Visitors from Canada and Mexico, two of the most important markets for Nevada, were down by double digits. Local analysts dubbed it the Trump slump, pointing to the tariffs, immigration crackdowns, and soaring costs tied to the Trump administration's policies. Even Latino families from California, who once flocked to Vegas for quick weekend getaways, were staying home out of fear of immigration raids and rising expenses. Inside the casinos, executives felt the pinch. On the Las Vegas Strip, where hotel towers stretched like glittering fortresses, average room rates had slipped by 5%, now hovering around $198 per night. Downtown smaller hotels tried to stay competitive by offering rooms for just $99, but even deep discounts couldn't mask the reality the Strip had lost its shine. Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts both admitted on investor calls that demand in Las Vegas was soft, even as their properties elsewhere in the country performed better. The phrase "Vegas is too expensive" was appearing more and more across social media, with frustrated tourists posting about resort fees, parking charges, $20 cocktails, and $50 buffets. What once felt like a bargain playground now felt like a financial trap. The average middle-class American facing their own struggles with inflation and high gas prices simply couldn't justify the trip. Meanwhile, the city's broader economy showed signs of strain. Declines in gambling revenue on the Strip, down nearly 1% in the first half of the year, were minor on paper, but massive in symbolism. Vegas had built its reputation on endless growth, and even the slightest dip set off alarm bells. For workers, the fear was simple. Fewer tourists meant fewer shifts, less overtime, and thinner paychecks. Union leaders warned that if the trend continued, layoffs could become inevitable. For casino bosses, the fear was different, that Las Vegas itself was losing its global status as the go-to entertainment capital. By the end of that first week, it was clear the city that once boasted of unstoppable momentum was now facing headwinds from every direction. The rally on Labor Day had raised questions about fairness. The tourism crash raised a darker question. Was Las Vegas finally pricing itself out of its own survival? On the early morning of September 12th, Las Vegas woke to headlines that shocked the political class. Edgar Flores, a Nevada state senator representing East Las Vegas, was arrested on suspicion of DUI. According to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, officers found his car idling at a red light near North Lamb Boulevard and East Lake Mead Parkway around 4:00 a.m. The engine was running, the gear was in drive, his foot pressed the brake, and he was fast asleep behind the wheel. When officers knocked on the window and got no response, they had to tap on the glass repeatedly before Flores finally stirred. Body cam footage later released to the public showed a man visibly disoriented, admitting that he had been out playing soccer with friends earlier in the evening and had a few drinks. For a sitting state senator, the image was disastrous. Flores, a Democrat in his first term in the Nevada Senate, had built his reputation as a rising star focused on immigrant rights and community issues in Clark County. That morning, all of that seemed to hang by a thread. Local commentators called it a humiliation for the legislature, while political opponents wasted no time questioning his fitness for office. The scandal struck at a delicate moment. Las Vegas was already under scrutiny for its economic troubles and labor unrest. To see one of its elected leaders literally asleep at the wheel, both figuratively and literally, felt like a symbol of the city's larger crisis. Though Flores later denied being intoxicated, insisting he had only been tired, the damage was done. The arrest report was public. The footage was viral. And in a city already wrestling with distrust in its leaders, this single night in September deepened the sense that Las Vegas was adrift. By mid-September 2025, another storm was brewing over Las Vegas, this time in the real estate market. A report from Redfin, one of the nation's top housing data firms, revealed that Las Vegas was the fastest cooling housing market in the United States. The numbers were staggering. The supply of homes for sale had jumped by 31% compared to last year, while pending sales were down by 8.6% and completed sales fell by 8.5%. For a city that had ridden wave after wave of housing booms, the sudden reversal was alarming. The causes were easy to see but painful to confront. Mortgage rates remained at historically high levels, making home ownership out of reach for many middle-class families. New short-term rental restrictions cracked down on Airbnb-style properties, forcing investors to sell off homes they could no longer profit from. And most importantly, the steady flow of newcomers that once fueled the Vegas housing market had slowed to a trickle thanks to a shaky tourism economy and rising living costs. Drive through neighborhoods in Henderson or Summerlin, and the signs were everywhere literally. For sale placards dotted streets that just a year ago were red hot with bidding wars. Sellers were cutting prices, offering concessions, and still waiting months for offers that once would have come in days. Housing analysts warned that Las Vegas was especially vulnerable. Unlike coastal cities where wealth could cushion downturns, the Vegas housing market depended heavily on workers in hospitality, entertainment, and construction. With those industries facing layoffs and reduced hours, fewer people could qualify for mortgages or take the leap into ownership. Even luxury real estate wasn't immune. High-rise condos along the Las Vegas Strip saw listings pile up as investors spooked by market uncertainty rushed to cash out. One analyst summed it up: Vegas went from a boom town to a sell-off town in less than a year. By the middle of September, the housing slump had become a symbol of the city's fragility. Just as with tourism, the myth of endless growth was crumbling, and the question hanging over Las Vegas was unavoidable. If the city's homes are losing value this fast, what does that say about the future of the community built around them? On September 14th, Las Vegas Boulevard, normally glowing with the buzz of tourists and neon lights, became the stage for one of the largest protests the city had seen in years. An estimated 8,000 people poured into the streets under the banner of the No Kings movement, a nationwide wave opposing the Trump administration's immigration crackdowns and warning against authoritarian overreach. The crowd was diverse immigrant families, union workers, college students, retirees, all chanting slogans like "America is our country, not your kingdom." Homemade signs carried messages in English and Spanish, demanding an end to ICE raids that had spread fear in local communities. For many families in East Las Vegas, the protest wasn't just politics, it was about survival. Parents worried about being separated from their children. Small business owners worried about customers disappearing overnight. At first, the demonstration was peaceful. Marchers waved flags, carried candles, and filled the air with music. But as night fell, tensions rose. Police in riot gear declared the gathering an unlawful assembly after protesters blocked traffic near the Bellagio fountains. Moments later, the Strip, a symbol of entertainment, was engulfed in tear gas and shouts. Officers fired rubber bullets and clashes erupted as some protesters threw plastic bottles and objects back at the line of shields. By the end of the night, 15 people were arrested and 4 officers sustained minor injuries. Videos of the chaos went viral, showing the surreal image of tourists in sequined outfits running alongside activists in masks, all coughing from clouds of chemical spray. Local leaders quickly weighed in. Supporters of the protesters argued that the crackdown only proved their point, that Las Vegas, a city built on diversity and immigrant labor, was being torn apart by heavy-handed policies. Critics, meanwhile, accused organizers of putting tourists and businesses at risk during one of the city's busiest weekends. But whatever side people took, one fact was undeniable: the No Kings protest had exposed deep fault lines in Las Vegas. In a single evening, the Strip transformed from a playground for visitors into a battleground for rights identity and the future of America's most iconic desert city. As September moved deeper into its second half, Las Vegas faced not just protests and economic decline, but a wave of financial scandals that reached from the glitzy Strip straight into federal courtrooms. The first shock came from Resorts World Las Vegas, the futuristic mega casino that opened with fireworks and celebrity fanfare just a few years ago. Regulators announced that the property had agreed to pay a staggering $10.5 million fine, the second largest penalty in Nevada casino history, for violations of federal anti-money laundering laws. Investigators revealed that for over a year, Resorts World had allowed unlicensed gamblers to move millions of dollars through its casino floors without proper checks. It was a clear reminder that even the newest jewel on the Strip could quickly become tarnished. Then came the bombshell involving Wynn Resorts, the operator of the luxurious Wynn and Encore properties. After a 10-year federal investigation, Wynn reached a non-prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice, agreeing to pay $130 million. The case centered on foreign money transfer services that funneled cash to high-rolling gamblers in violation of US banking laws. Though Wynne insisted the wrongdoing was the work of former employees acting outside company policy, the settlement was a historic black mark, the largest financial penalty ever imposed on a Las Vegas casino by federal prosecutors. For many, these headlines confirmed what critics had long suspected. Behind the shimmering lights, Sin City was still a magnet for money laundering and financial crime. And the scandals didn't stop with the casinos. In federal court, a former Las Vegas business executive was sentenced to 51 months in prison for running a fraudulent investment scheme that swindled more than $6.1 million from clients. On the same week, prosecutors charged 3 men with operating a nationwide mail fraud scam out of Las Vegas, targeting elderly victims across the country and siphoning away millions with promises of fake sweepstakes winnings. And in perhaps the most modern twist, federal agents unsealed indictments against Brent Kovar, a Las Vegas entrepreneur accused of orchestrating a $24 million cryptocurrency scam. Kovar allegedly lured investors with promises of cutting-edge blockchain technology, but instead used the funds to bankroll luxury cars, homes, and a lavish Vegas lifestyle. He now faces multiple counts of wire fraud, mail fraud, and money laundering. Each of these cases added fuel to the perception that Las Vegas was living up to its nickname, America's Casino of Risk, not just for tourists, but for anyone betting on its financial system. The combination of high-stakes gambling transient populations and vast sums of untraceable cash created the perfect breeding ground for fraudsters. By the end of September, the headlines were relentless. Fines in the hundreds of millions. Executives led away in handcuffs. Federal investigations stretching across borders. The image of Las Vegas as a playground for quick fortunes seemed to merge with its darker identity, a city where fortunes are stolen, laundered, or lost in scandals that can rock the nation. As September drew to a close, the spotlight in Las Vegas shifted from the casinos to the everyday struggles of ordinary residents. Beneath the neon glow, the city was facing a quieter but equally urgent crisis, one that touched housing, healthcare, and even animal welfare. The unemployment rate in the Las Vegas metro area climbed to nearly 6%, one of the highest among large US cities. In raw numbers, more than 4,300 jobs had vanished between July and August, mostly in construction and hospitality. For a community built on service work, those missing paychecks meant families cutting back on groceries, missing rent, or working multiple side jobs just to survive. At the same time, the housing crunch showed no mercy. With home prices cooling and more properties flooding the market, renters weren't celebrating, they were panicking. Rents remained stubbornly high, and the dream of buying a home slipped further away for many service workers. Union leaders warned that without real housing reform, Las Vegas risked becoming a city where workers could no longer afford to live in the very hotels and casinos they staffed. Then came the headlines from UMC University Medical Center, the city's largest public hospital. Short on funds and overwhelmed by demand, UMC officials warned they needed emergency support from Clark County just to keep essential services running. For low-income families and the uninsured, the idea of losing access to critical healthcare was terrifying. Critics blasted city leaders for investing billions into entertainment projects while leaving frontline hospitals scrambling to pay their bills. Even the city's treatment of animals became a flashpoint. The Animal Foundation, Las Vegas's main animal shelter, was under fire after reports of overcrowding, neglect, and rising euthanasia rates. In late September, the City Council reluctantly approved an $11 million extension for the shelter, but only with strict conditions for reform. For many residents, the debate symbolized how the city's priorities seemed upside down: endless money for casinos, but constant crises for community needs. Walking through the neighborhoods of East Las Vegas or North Las Vegas, you could see the frustration firsthand. Shuttered storefronts, families doubling up in small apartments, volunteers handing out food at community centers. The glittering strip looked like another world, one where billion-dollar fines and luxury towers overshadowed the daily grind of ordinary people. By the end of September, the message was clear. The crisis in Las Vegas wasn't just about lost tourists or shaky real estate. It was about whether the city could take care of its own. And for many residents, the answer still felt painfully uncertain. In just 30 days, the story of Las Vegas in September 2025 unfolded like a cautionary tale. From the Labor Day rally at the Sphere, to the chilling tourism numbers that showed nearly 2 million lost visitors, to the scandal of Edgar Flores asleep at the wheel, the city seemed to stumble from one headline to the next. Add to that the real estate collapse, the fiery No Kings protest that brought 8,000 people into the streets, the record-breaking casino fines, and the quiet crises in housing, healthcare, and unemployment, and the portrait of Sin City becomes unavoidable. This was no longer just about bright lights and weekend getaways. It was about whether America's playground could sustain itself when the bills came due. Every corner of the city, from the Strip's billion-dollar towers to the modest apartments of East Las Vegas, felt the weight of a month that tested its resilience. So the question remains, is this simply a rough patch, or is Las Vegas sliding toward the same fate as Atlantic City, a glittering empire undone by its own excess? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, what happened in September 2025 should serve as a warning shot to the rest of America. Because in the heart of the desert beneath the glow of neon, the struggles of Las Vegas are no longer just local, they are a mirror of the nation itself.